Again, good morning, everyone. And we are going to hop right into Story Engine at Sudowrite. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, to get to Story Engine, we are going to click a new project. Also in the chat, could you guys let me know what genres you write? I'm open for a story idea this morning. So any particular story that you want to see written this morning will, I usually take suggestions from the chat. So there's a question in the chat about the new 16K window. As far as I know that Sudowrite will be integrating it, but it literally just dropped yesterday, like in the afternoon. So I don't believe it's there yet. Yeah. Okay, so we have YA magical fantasy, thriller, crime thriller. You know, we haven't done a thriller in a long time. So let's go ahead and do some thriller action here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename my project and we're going to call it Story Engine. I'm now taking any suggestions for the thriller, any kind of context that you guys have. Story thriller. Oh my gosh, Elizabeth, no. Story Engine 101. And today's date is June 14th. That way, if there's anything that we do today, and you're like, Elizabeth, can I get that thing that you did? You can message me on the Slack and I can pull it up into the from the project. So let's go ahead and click Story Engine and let's get started. Now, Story Engine is designed to work left to right, but you don't have to do that. And that's not how we're going to start this morning. So the idea of Story Engine was that somebody could come in who wants to write a story, know absolutely nothing about the story, and start filling in the boxes on the left of what they know. And from just these three boxes right here, brain dump, genre, and style, you could literally click generate, 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 and have the AI write you the first draft of your list of characters, your synopsis, and your outline. Now, that being said, all of these boxes are 100% optional. And what I mean by that is we're going to actually work this morning with pantsing with it to show you what little information you need, which this is actually going to help my plotters as well. Because here is an advanced tip. Story Engine actually works best with the least amount of information. And what I mean by least amount of information, I mean like the least amount of information it needs to know in order to write the scene. And the reason I say that is because when we fill these boxes in and then we start prompting it to write us a scene, we're giving the AI the option to look at all this information we've given it. And it can be quite a bit of information. If you look at these boxes, characters, 700 words, outline, 1700 words, synopsis, 800 words, and brain dump, 2000 words. When we start getting all this information, we're giving the AI the opportunity to go, this is important, this is not. And sometimes when the AI has the chance to make those kinds of decisions, they come out wonky. Has anyone experienced that with either Story Engine or ChatGPT? If you give the AI a ton of information, it doesn't necessarily think like a human. It will focus on the smallest thing, that she's got white sneakers, but completely forget she's got a twin sister. One of those is more important to the story than the other. Okay, so let's see what we have some information here about psychological thriller. A man who's infatuated with a woman he sees every day on the train. He begins stalking her against his better judgment one day and witnesses her kill someone. Okay, so we will save that for the brain dump because that's a really good brain dump. But let's try this. Let's pretend all I know about the story is that I keep seeing this thing about a man seeing this woman on a train, and it's going to be a thriller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put right here in genre, psychological thriller. We'll come back to the style box. I think that style box is actually going to move. And then here in outline. So outline requires a certain format, Act 1 hyphen, whatever word you want, a colon, and then chapter 1 colon, chapter 2 colon. So you can bring whatever outline you want. How many of you use a specific outline formatting when you do your books, like something like Save the Cat, Superstructure, Romancing the Beats, or you just like to write your own outlines? Anyone like to write their own outlines? Yes, yeah. So you can bring your own outline. You just have to match that format, the Act 1 introduction. So all I'm going to type in here is Act 1 and introduction. Actually, I'll show you that we can change it. So I will say train, because they're meeting on the train. And then chapter 1, a man. Let's just go with that first part here. day in and day out. We're going to really push the envelope here. Okay, so chapter 1, a man spies a woman on a train who absolutely beguiles him. He finds himself noticing her day in and day out. This chapter should be a montage of short vignettes. This is the important thing about writing with AI. How many of you are used to just writing, like I tell the AI what happens in the story and I expect it to know what I want, versus giving it some information like these literary analysis words and stuff like that that we all learned in different schools or different classes that we took on creative writing, like asking the AI, say, this is what happens in the story, and I want you to do it in a letter form, or I want you to do it as a text message, or I want you to do it as a short vignette. AI is actually more powerful if you start to give it commands. I call the beats commands, or information and commands that use these literary terms, because now you're giving it bigger context of what you're going after. So there's a question here about, to what extent can you get Sudowrite to learn your story's background, make suggestions based on the existing context? That's a great question. That is for a little bit later, and you'll see like you can build it out from the left-hand side. So as we start working with that left-hand side, we'll talk about what kinds of information you can bring from your existing work. And another thing in the chat is, I think that style form is really important, but hard to communicate sometimes. We'll talk about that with Stylebox too. So can we all agree that this is hardly any information at all? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click generate and let it generate the beats for me. I gave it no information about how long I want the scene to be or anything like that, just that I want them in short vignettes. I didn't tell it a setting. I didn't tell it anything about these characters. I didn't tell them what age it is or anything like that. The AI is going to, if it wants to, it's going to make all of that up. Beats is hard coded to write you 12 beats. It doesn't mean that you have to use 12 beats. You can bring your own beats to the party. You can add more beats. You can take beats away. If you write short fiction, you want to write with fewer beats, because each group of beats, 1 and 2. Oh no, an error occurred. I know that yesterday AWS was having a really hard time, and there was some outages last night with OpenAI. So we'll see what happens here. But back to the beats section here. Beats, I call them commands originally, but it's really just a set of instructions that you give the AI to write the scene. If you've ever worked with ChatGPT and been like, here's chapter 1, now write chapter 1, and it struggled, what you were missing was this step in between, this interstitial step called beats or commands, where it's like a step-by-step instructions of what to write. Each instruction, the AI will write about 100 to 200 words. The bar is going faster now. So it wrote these beats, and let's take a look at them. Now, every once in a while, when you have these beats, it'll have these things in parentheses here that say driver, man's inner conflict and struggle with his past. You can keep those, you can get rid of those. It's just prompt leakage from the back end from something that happens to try to make these beats happen. So if you think about this a little bit like almost cinemagraphically, we would start the scene of the man on the train highlighting his introverted nature and past traumas that make it difficult for him to connect with people. Now, that wasn't a piece of information we gave the AI at all. That was something that it decided to do for this story. Describe the woman's physical appearance in detail, emphasizing the man's growing obsession with her. Show the man's daily routine of noticing the woman on the train, including his thoughts and feelings about her. Use short vignettes to show the man's observations of the woman's actions and mannerisms, building tension and anticipation for their eventual meeting. Describe the woman's reading habits, coffee drinking, and phone usage in detail, emphasizing the man's fascination with her. So it made the decision that this story is happening in now because you have a phone on a train versus like the 1940s. And that's all because we didn't tell it the 1940s. We just let it decide what it wanted to write. Establish the man's shyness and reluctance to approach the woman, highlighting his fear of rejection. How many of you, when you're writing the beats, this is what's happening when you're writing this? Like you're doing this kind of style? Anyone? Or are you doing more, some of it? Okay, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and let's run this. I'm gonna take out these drivers. Well, we'll leave them in for right now so I can see what happens here. These are, you can use drivers and guardrails. I affectionately call them dragons and gargoyles if you want to. And that's like, if you, the problem is that sometimes they don't really work very well with prose generation. What happens is that instead of a negative, For example, here's a guardrail, no major plot points or spoilers. I like to flip it into something that's positive. Going back to that toddler analogy with the AI, instead of saying no major plot points or spoilers, I would say focus on this moment in the story to ratchet up tension. Do not, instead of foreshadowing later events. So I would always write it I would always write it with like a positive. Yes, toddler communication is exactly how I handle the AI. Because when you ask a toddler to go get their shoes on, you can't say, go get your shoes on. They'll be overwhelmed. They'll go play with their toys. You also can't tell them, go get your socks, go get your shoes, now put them on. You can't give them 3 or 4 steps because they'll be like, yeah, whatever, I don't know. You have to go get your shoes. Good job, go get your socks. Good job, put your socks on, put your shoes on, and now you get to leave the door 15 minutes later than what you wanted to. So that is why the beats, you almost have to think about them in terms of like how the robot would handle it. And these beats are going to run in a stride of 2. And what that means is 1 and 2 are going to run together. 3 and 4 are going to run together. 5 and 6 will run together. 7 and 8 will run together. I like to put a space in between just so that I can mentally see where the AI is going to write a slice of the story and then where it's going to stop and write the next slice, because sometimes the transition or the blending of those 2 slices doesn't go very well. So this helps me to make sure, for example, right here, introduce the man on the train, highlighting, describe the woman's appearance in detail, emphasizing the man's growing obsession with her. Show the man's daily routine of noticing the woman on the train, including his thoughts and feelings about her. So I want to change this and go introduce new vignette and communicate. Oh my gosh, I misspelled that so bad. Wasn't even close. Communicate the that time has passed and it's now a new week. Show the man's daily routine of noticing the woman on the train every day this week, including his thoughts and feelings about her. And it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. The word choice and sentence length should give the reader a feeling of tension. There we go. So I'm giving it instructions like I would a junior writing partner. I'm saying, hey, do this. I'm going to go ahead and copy this one group of beats and put it in the chat for you guys so that you guys can save it. And I'll also put what I put in the outline. So if you want to take this, if you want to try this in your own pseudo-write, you'll get a different response than me, but it gives you something that you can play with. Okay, so what I would normally do is I would validate all of these beats, but we're just going to run 1 through 2 and 3 through 4. Now down here, we have 3 options for the prose: fastest, most accurate, best prose. If I'm not really worried about words, if I've got lots of words and everything like that, especially if I'm just learning how to write beats, I'm actually going to use fastest. The reason I'm going to use fastest is because, well, number one, it's the fastest. And I find that if my beats aren't going to work, this is going to show me very quickly versus me sitting here for 5 minutes waiting for the most accurate to run. And then I find out that I've screwed something up with my beats. So I'm going to click fastest. And you can immediately pause and that will have it only run 1 through 2. Okay, so like I said, 1 click, that was 354 words, bam, very fast. And now we can validate this. The train rattled along the tracks, jolting the man in his seat. He was lost in thought, staring blankly out the window, as he always did during his commute to work. He was a solitary man, preferring to keep to himself, never speaking unless spoken to first. He was introverted nature, made it difficult for him to connect. It's very telly, but you could take this into the regular pseudo-write and start making edits to it or change it up. So I like this. He walked down the seat. She chose the one directly across from him. You could change it. That's in Stylebox. I'll show how that works after I get done showing the different models here real fast. Excuse me, is there something on my face? The man quickly looked away, embarrassed at being caught staring. No, no, sorry. So she recognized him, or she noticed him and interacted with him. Now, as the train pulled away, the man sat there, lost in his own thoughts, his obsession with the woman growing stronger and stronger with each passing day. If I click continue, it's going to start running beats 3 and 4 now. So as soon as I go continue, it's got 3, 4. It starts doing the following day, but the next day she was there again. Each day seemed to pass in a blur. And it's still going. So this is where it's kind of like vignettes, but it's not really. I mean, this isn't the writing style I asked for. This isn't making me tense. This isn't making me tense or anything like that. It's kind of making me like, okay, it's just a zombie draft. It's a first draft or a vomit draft. There are authors out there who like this as well. They like the fastest because what they do with AI, they don't want the AI to write the words. They just want that first draft, and then they take it and they completely rewrite it. They're really energized by the fact that they could read something and then just completely rewrite it. Now I'm going to come up here to the top chapter 1 and create another chapter. And you're probably going, wait a minute, Elizabeth, you have 2 chapter 1s. Yes, this is actually one of the cool features about Story Engine. You can literally copy your beats and bring them over. And that doesn't count against your quota. The 330 words that I had to generate, because I copied and pasted, that doesn't count. And I'm also going to, on this left-hand side, make sure you mark what model ran it. So I know that that was fastest. The reason I do that is because when I drop this down here, I'm going to pick a different model. And when I do, it's going to change the button on everything. So I won't know that the other one was fastest. To compare, we're going to go ahead and do most accurate and click go. And as soon as it starts, I'll press pause to stop it. Now we've done nothing in style, and I do it this way on purpose so you guys can see what the writing is before you apply any style to it in the style box. I think getting a good idea of how it's going to naturally write can help you see how fine-tuned style can change something, or how little or how much it'll change. So here we have a lot more visceral. Instead of the train rattled along the tracks, jolting the man in his seat, we have the train screeched to a halt and the door slid open with a mechanical hiss. One of these sentences is a little bit more visceral details than the other. And that's where most accurate kind of shines. Most accurate at the moment is GPT-4, but and fastest is 3.5, but that can change as more models come down and everything like that. So we have excuse me, piercing through the veil of memories. So he was ghosts of his childhood. So this is where it's starting to pick up that he's this, remember the beat said he had trauma and stuff like that. So it's starting to bring up things like he's got his mind set on it. So she asks if the seat's taken. He's stammering. That's cool. That's part of cool characterization there. And if you were really writing this thriller, the idea that he's going to kill her is what the reader's expecting the whole time, and then the reader's going to find out she's killed someone. That's very powerful. For now, at least he had her attention. So it did 1 through 2. I also like how this ended a lot better, because if I'm writing this and I want little vignettes, I want each one to kind of end on a powerful kind of like, okay, this could continue, and then it's not. I'm going to click continue just so that we can get beats 3, 4, just so that we can compare them left to right, because I want to see how it does the vignette. And that's more the style I wanted, Monday. That's exactly what I wanted. Yeah. And you guys can see the difference. That most accurate was able to follow my beats. Fastest was like, yeah, no, I have no idea what this means. I'm not going to do it. And stylistically, if I was formatting this for a book, it would have Monday in italics, like right there, and then the little bit, and then Tuesday, and then like I would want the reader to read this and feel like it's like almost like a camera at a movie or something like that. And this is exactly what I wanted, where the weather would change. Rain poured outside. The man observed her from his seat, taking note of the way the raindrops clung to her hair as she shook the umbrella before boarding. There was something melancholic about the sight, yet it only served to increase his fascination. and now it's rejection. So I'm not mad at this at all. This is fantastic. Yep. Oh, I forgot to click pause. Dagnabbit. So it's going to do 5 through 6. Sorry about that. All right. So the next thing, and the amazing part, everyone, it's learning how to talk to the AI as instructions, like a junior writing partner. It's pulling out those literary terms and saying, I want vignettes, and I want this written in a way that is going to make the reader feel tension. You can give it instructions in the beats that are far beyond just plot points. Plot points is the backbone, but then you need to give it the specific instructions of how you want that written. What do you want that particular section to do? Okay, so 5, 6 is, so unfortunately, there's not, everyone wants an instruction sheet, and the instruction sheet is, there isn't one. If you research, like if you just look up a thing of literary terms and everything like that, all of the AI understands all of that. If you're really ever curious, Sudowrite is built off of OpenAI and Claude from Anthropic. You can go to ChatGPT or anything and ask it for a whole list of literary terms that it understands for writing a story or making a chapter, and it'll give you the vocabulary that you can use to bring into your beats. Maybe tomorrow. So it decided in this next section he didn't quite talk to her. So, and that really quickly, we just got 1,300 words while we were sitting here talking, and we've been at this less than 30 minutes. We have 900 words on the other side. All right, so I have one more model to show you before we start making changes to the style. So I'm going to create the chapter 1. We're going to paste in the beats, same beats. We're going to run 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now there's a model basically that runs in the middle of most accurate and fastest, and that is Best Prose. Best Prose is currently connected to Claude. Oh, I already forgot one of my steps. I forgot to label this, because see, it changed the button, so I wouldn't know that this was most accurate if I didn't mark it. I'm going to go ahead and click Best Prose. And you'll immediately see why people like Best Prose. Best Prose has a natural style that is better than what's there. Now, it already wrote 1 through 2, and I'm going to click continue. Amer brings up something very important about Claude. Claude is the most toddlerous of them all. He has the ability to just completely reject your beats and substitute his own. So it has Tuesday, it has Wednesday, and it's going here. I don't know, it's writing so much, I don't know if it's going to keep going. Thursday. Okay, so here is where Claude, it's off on the beats. It'll eventually write them all, but it needed more time for it. And so the beat count is completely off, because we're on 7, 8, and it's still talking about the next day. It's still stuck on beats 3 and 4, where I said I wanted it to go through each day. And I only realized this yesterday. I think it's one of the changes they may have made or something like that. I recognized this last night, because now we're on 9, 10, and it's like the next day. So I think now we're on Friday. Let's see, let's go up to the beats. I didn't know what's in 5 and 6. The coffee drinking, the shyness, the stop, use the montage, and the montage with the man still watching the woman from afar, his desire burning even stronger for her. Let's see where this thing finishes up. Oh, actually, it did really well. So it wrote the whole thing 15:21, and it followed the beats for the most part. Tomorrow, he vowed. Tomorrow he would find the courage to shatter the silence, and then he would see where the pieces fell. So it also is better than Claude doesn't have bowitis as bad as ChatGPT does. ChatGPT likes to tie everything up into a little bow, where it would be like, little did he know his life would change forever once he finally mustered the courage to talk to her. Claude sometimes does that, but it doesn't do it all the time. Okay, so quick question. I always love this. How many liked fastest? Because they just want a quick draft that they use as a backbone, and they plan to rewrite. Does anyone like fastest? Oh, Gail likes fastest. I also like fastest a lot too, because I can check my beats. And also, sometimes I just need to see a little bit so I can get a better idea. Like, especially if I don't know a scene very well yet, it can kind of give me some good ideas. All right. Amer prefers most accurate. How many people prefer Claude? Best pros. And so one of the things that I've started doing, and I shared the video of this into Sudowrite from my YouTube channel, but I'll have more too, is kit bashing. There's ways to get the AI to actually take these two chapters and put them together and like grab lines from them. So that's what I most often do. When I do it manually, I literally grab pieces from each one and I put them together. I'll create another chapter one that's empty and I'll start bringing those pieces in. Okay, so I think the way that we're going to see the biggest difference is if we'll use best prose. And now we're going to try changing some things in style. So when you are writing with prose, you can click on the hover over the question mark, and it'll tell you the boxes that it's pulling information from in order to write. Now, I want to emphasize, we gave it the smallest amount of information and we got some really good material out of it. So the more information you give it, you can see how the more complicated sometimes it can get. So we're going to come all the way over here to style, and let's talk about style for a second. So I heard first person point of view. Who would like to see this scene first person point of view? I think that would be kind of cool. So we'll do first person point of view from the man. Now, you want present tense as well. Okay. Present tense. Is it taking place in modern day? Are we cool with that? Let's do with the modern day just to keep it there. Modern day. Let's see. Writing style is tense, is high tension. And now I'm going to talk about something that I always get pushback in class, but I can assure you I've done the research on this. Theme. The AI needs to know the theme. This is the context through which it makes every choice for word choice when it's making decisions about what should happen next in the story. You can change the theme based on the chapter that you're writing. Most of us don't worry about theme until we're done writing, or if we're having to evaluate a story. And I have a hypothesis on why theme matters so much to the AI. I think it has to do with how it was analyzing literature, because the first thing we ask a student or someone to do if they're analyzing literature is to identify the theme, right? Like that's the first step. You're ever in class and it's like, what's the theme of this section or whatever? So I think when that happened, the AI thinks that theme is something that's really important. Anytime you ask it to summarize a section of writing and say like, write the information I need to know to mimic this style, it always includes theme. It never leaves it out. It always puts it there of like, it's an important piece of information that it needs to know in order to mimic that style. So what is a theme? Well, we would actually call them tropes. Humans would call it a trope or a keyword or something like that. So it's really fascinating to me, the difference between how the AI understands concepts and words and how a human does. So what do we want our theme to be here? Do we want it to be, we could do something like, what's the word? Desire, or we could do something about, I'm trying to think of the wording for like something you can't have. What is that called? Envy, I guess, or longing. Are any of these making anyone excited or interested about the story to see how it interprets it? Let's go with the theme is, let's go with romantic desire, and then we'll try changing it to something different so that we can see the difference for the writing. So we'll do romantic desire and longing. Okay. And then the other one was end chapters on a cliffhanger. So actually, I'm not going to, that's the word, obsession works better. Let's go with romantic obsession. Now a perfume from Elizabeth Taylor. Okay. About the cliffhangers. This is not where I would put cliffhangers. And the reason why is because it's so far separated. If you want your chapter to end on a cliffhanger, sure, I can copy that and paste that in the chat. Thank you for reminding me. If you want a cliffhanger, guess where you steer it to get a cliffhanger at? Right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another chapter 1. We're going to copy our beats over. We're not making changes to the beats because we've already made a big change to the thing. Although one change I will make is right here. End on a cliffhanger. And it, when possible, give it a clue about the cliffhanger. So if you know what cliffhanger you want to spell it out here. If you don't know what cliffhanger you want, try to come up with something that you want the cliffhanger to be about. If you just say end on a cliffhanger, the AI is too free to interpret that in a bunch of different ways. You do have to give it a little bit of information. So I'm going to go ahead and click Best Prose, and we're just going to let it go. And we'll see the difference in the writing style. We already have first person. We now have a description. We have obsession got brought in. Tomorrow I'll work up the courage to talk to her. Tomorrow I'll have another chance. Tomorrow. I like that it does a lot of the repetition. The next day dawns bright and early. She pauses in the doorway, glancing over her shoulder to find me still standing there, stunned. Are you coming? Oh, because right here. Our eyes meet from across the platform, and for a brief, heart-stopping moment, she smiles. Not a polite grimace, most reserved for strangers, but a true, radiant smile that lights up her face. My heart stutters in my chest as she makes her way onto the train. She pauses in the doorway, glancing over her shoulder to find me still standing there, stunned. Are you coming? The words are soft, almost shy, and I have to pinch myself to ensure I'm not dreaming. I'm Ava. Will. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Will. The pleasure's all mine. A blur of laughter. Would you like to get coffee sometimes or dinner? So it really changed the story at that point. And this is where Claude, you know, has the ability to just, like, we don't have anything about the bistro. That doesn't work unless he's imagining all of this. Yeah, Claude went really off the rails here. It has prompt leakage right here. And so this is something that I would downvote and let them know that it messed up. And it messed up here too. Enough of this nonsense. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to thumb it down and I'm going to say bits of, let's see here. All right, so I'm going to click submit just so that they know that that feedback, because they can see that. I'm going to do create another chapter. We'll copy the same beats over, and this time we'll just do most accurate, and we'll see how that handles it. And that's going to run for a minute, so we'll talk. Okay, does the AI see all caps commands differently? In my experience, yes. All punctuation to an AI matters, but it doesn't matter what the punctuation is. Whether you use square brackets or parentheses, it just knows that if something's in parentheses or something's in brackets, it's separate or a different concept than what else is around there. It understands the 2 asterisks on either side to mean bold. 3 asterisks is a dinkus. You can use a dinkus to like divide and separate things as well, separate thoughts. So like, here's the information, here's the instructions on how to write it. Let me see what else. So those are the things. Be careful of your colons in Sudowrite, because Sudowrite uses colons in Story Engine to denote like somebody's a new character or something like that. You want to limit your use of colons only to where they're required. Yes, Most Accurate is currently using ChatGPT 4. But I want to stress, please don't get too attached to the specific models. Like literally yesterday, we got 16K 3.5. New models come out every single month, it seems like, all the time. So at any one time, the model may be something different, because may change in the future because new models come down that are better at doing different tasks and everything like that. Does it leave the rail this time because of style, theme editing, or cliffhanger, because Claude does what it wants? I don't know. Oh, thank you. Label the last one Best Prose. So yeah, we'll do that. I don't know if it went, that's why I'm running most accurate, because if it goes off the rails with most accurate, then I know I screwed it up with my style and everything like that. Because Claude has the ability to just go off the rails because he feels like it. I think he was on his break or something when I clicked the button. Let's see how most accurate's handling it. So it did do first person. It's got earbuds, so cool. I've always been this way, a stranger in a crowd, unable to connect with anyone outside of my own head. Now I'm the office drone who spends his lunch breaks locked away in a bathroom stall just to avoid making small talk with coworkers. Oh, my heart breaks for this dude. But today, as I sit in my corner on the train, something changes. My eyes fall upon her, a woman standing by the opposite window. She is illuminated by the pale morning light that filters through the glass, casting a glow upon her face like some ethereal being. You tell how do you tell when Sudowrite's using Claude or ChatGPT? You control it when you choose which model. That's why they're called most accurate best pros right now. Right now, most accurate GPT-4, fastest is 3.5, Claude is best pros. But like I said, that could change in the future. And that's why they named them most accurate best pros, because they're going to use the models based on those different parameters. There was a question earlier about if best pros is better for pantsers. Sometimes I think it is, just because it has the chance to go off the rails, and that doesn't bother pantsers nearly as much as it bothers plotters. I'm a plotter, or maybe a plantser, something in between. And if I've worked on my outline and then the AI goes off my outline, like, I see red. I am so angry. I am frustrated. If I was more pantsing something, I'm like, oh, whatever, that's a better idea anyway, I'll run with it. So this is interesting. Hey, buddy, you've been watching her all week. You gonna make a move or what? This is interesting because it brought it in at 3.4, and I feel like that's leakage there, because unless it decided to do that now, because it was supposed to not do that until 10. And here's where we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. On Thursday, she boards the train with a furrowed brow, her lips pressed into a thin line. I long to know what troubles her, to offer solace and reassurance. The urge to approach her is almost unbearable, but fear keeps me rooted to my spot. Could you pass this down, please? Someone hands me a newspaper, forcing me to momentarily break my gaze. When I look back, her eyes are closed, her expression pained. My heart aches at the sight. He's barely slept. So the obsession, like elements of obsession and stuff like that, this is what I mean by it's very nuanced, but the word choices you make in the style box will start to influence what choices it makes over in the right-hand side. And the reason here, like I say, I try to use best pros as much as I can, is that it takes forever to run most accurate. Most accurate, just like, and if your beats are off, you could sit here and wait for a few minutes, and then you realize like, oh, those beats were completely off the rails. That's why I like to run fastest first, just to like double, like flight check. Next stop, Riverstone Station. Excuse me, someone says from behind, pushing past me to exit the train. Riverstone Station, the conductor repeats. Here, she murmurs into her phone, sliding it into her pocket with practiced ease. All right, so he's cursing. Yeah, and it's looping a little bit because now it's got Tuesday. What happened? I wonder if it's because I put the breaks in here that it's confused. Oh, it's running 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4. Maybe? No. I think I broke it by putting the breaks in, by putting the spaces in. Although this isn't bad, because now I think it's like the next week as a reader. What do you all think? I mean, I'm really feeling like this is the repeat here. Tomorrow I'll speak to her. Friday, next stop, Riverstone Station. I mean, it's amazing to me because it's like, it reminds me of like those, what is it, Closing Doors or something like that, like the different, like kind of weird movies and things. Yeah. Sometimes the spaces confuse it and sometimes it doesn't. We'll never get away from Riverstone again. At least it's not Willow Creek Station. Willow Creek is one of the most popular things that the AI likes to pick over and over again. So hopefully it'll end this. And truthfully, I'm impressed with the AI because I have tension in my heart over this repetitive nature of Riverstone Station. I'm aggravated as a reader, not in a bad way, but in a, I had a visceral reaction to this. I feel this character's, it made me care about this character a little bit with the detail about him sitting in the bathroom at lunchtime and then he's just obsessed with this woman on the days of the train. The door's open. I hesitantly reach out and hand her the note, but instead another passenger inadvertently bumps into me, knocking the paper to the floor. Sorry, man, he says, oblivious to the significance of his actions. Riverstone Station echoes through the train as the doors close, my last chance gone with the wind. Was that for her? A voice suddenly asked, startling me. I turn to see a fellow commuter, an older woman with a knowing smile. I nod, unable to speak. Well, don't give up, dear. Love is worth fighting for, she says before leaving the train as well. Love, I whisper, the word feeling foreign on my lips. Is that what this is? Love? Woo! Okay, I'm impressed. I'm a little bit impressed with the AI this morning. So that's what I mean by I gave it that cliffhanger. And now if I was pantsing the story, who are we going to have this woman kill? The little old lady, right? At least that's what I would write. Who would you guys have her kill? Riverstone. She just blows up the station. There's no more Riverstone Station. All right. So I hope that that was really helpful for About the Beats. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start a new story engine with going the left to right. So let me go back to my homepage and we're going to start a new project here. Part 2. Okay, so clicking on story engine. Do we want to stick with thriller or do we want to move on to something, a different genre? If we want to just contrast this, we can do it with the thing that Johnny shared earlier. Like there was a paragraph there that I could throw into brain dumping. We can see how it develops it out. I think we'll just stick with thriller this morning because that way we can get going here. There is, let me go up to the part up at the very top right here. Or I'm sorry, Almer. I'm sorry, Almer was the one who suggested it. Apologies. So I'm going to grab Almer's chat here into my brain dump. A man who's infatuated with a woman he sees every day on the train. He begins stalking her against his better judgment one day and witnesses her kill someone. All right, let me come back down to the Claude thing. Okay, down here. What is the yes, thank you, Mark? Sticking with thriller or going with something new? You guys can unmute at any time if you want to just talk. That's fine too.
I was joking with Gail.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, it does
Sorry.
love palpable. Yeah, there's certain crutch words that the AI has, but truthfully, I'm not mad about it because I have crutch words.
No.
Yeah, like
it's such it's if that's my list of complaints, we're doing really well.
So we're gonna go with psychological thriller. And just to keep things consistent here, we'll keep the same style, although we're not going to get to that part yet, I don't think. Just so that we're apples to apples here. Now, this part, this is more for my people who, you also maybe for pantsers or plotters, but this is actually going to create the elements that we're more accustomed to. So we have right here, and we're going to click generate and go ahead and let it do the synopsis. I'll answer some questions in the chat. If beats are filled out, is that all that is looked at? If I have beats and characters, for example, will it use the characters info? It will use the characters info. However, it's going to decide if that character matters or not. So what I actually do with my character lists, this is an advanced thing. I only put in the characters that I need for that scene or for that chapter. So that way, and when in my beats, I specifically call those characters out. I try not to use pronouns as little as possible. Yeah. Here we have a little ditty about Jack, and instead of Diane, we have Sarah. So every day the sun rises over the city, a man named Jack boards the train to his office. He's a creature of habits, grown used to seeing the same faces day in, day out. There's one face that stands out from the rest. While this is running, I'm just going to go ahead and click generate so it'll generate the characters. I'm not too concerned about synopsis in the sense, I just wanted to show you that it will generate you a synopsis from what you put in Brain Dump. You can put literally anything in Brain Dump, whatever you want. And if you hover over a question mark here, you can see it looks at Brain Dump and it looks at genre. The more information you put in Brain Dump, the more specific information is going to be in your synopsis. If you don't like the names Jack and Sarah, give them names in your Brain Dump. If you have names of characters in your Brain Dump, those will get brought over into synopsis. One thing that synopsis can sometimes struggle with is giving you a clear ending. This time it does, it's fine. The story ends with Jack realizing he had misjudged Sarah and that he's fallen in love with her. The two ride off into the sunset, leaving their past behind and starting anew together. That wouldn't probably work because it's it just turned this into a romance instead of a psychological thriller. So that's a problem. So let's see here. He sees her commit a murder. So that's going to happen in Act 2, basically, or at the end of Act 1. He's torn between protecting Sarah and his own safety. He tries to keep his secret hidden while trying to understand why Sarah would commit such a heinous act. He discovers she has a dark history and she's involved in something much bigger than just one murder. He realizes that he's in too deep and must find a way out before it's too late. So this kind of turns it into like almost like Sarah is the villain and just like pulls Jack in. I don't know that this is really a thriller ending, is it? That it was self-defense and the person she killed was part of a dangerous group that had been threatening her life. That's like way more romantic suspense than anything I've ever read, I think. What are your guys' thoughts?
Is that because we've got the theme romantic obsession?
I'm sorry?
Is it because the style you mentioned theme romantic obsession?
Oh,
It's-
probably not, because synopsis isn't supposed to look at that, but that's, I guess it's possible. It's possible that it's in there. Yeah, that would make sense that would bleed in there if it looks at it, but it's not supposed to. So I'm really confused on that. I'll have to ask the pseudo-rate team about that. Let's try. So what I could do is I could give it instructions to rewrite the synopsis, but that's being a T-Rex. That's deciding that my hands don't reach the keyboard. And if I don't want it to take 400 words again for me, I could change that twist. Okay, so, but other people like the twist, so we're just going to keep moving on so that we can kind of end the class soon. Characters. So this is what I meant by be careful of your colons. It read the synopsis and it made up a bunch of characters. It has Jack and Sarah, but the Detective Michaels and Martin and Laura and Victor were never mentioned in the synopsis. So it decided, like where it said there was criminal elements, it created Victor of the criminal world. Laura is a criminal underworld, complicates Sarah and Jack. And then Martin is a close friend of Jack. If I was actually writing the story, I don't know that Jack would have a close friend if we're trying to write this introvert and everything like that. And then it came up with this Detective Michaels. So he has someone who's investigating. You can add more characters. This only used 261 words of 700 words. You also can add to this. Like you can say that he is an Enneagram 3 if you want to. And the AI understands Enneagram, it understands Myers-Briggs, it understands a whole breadth of psychological terms. Remember how I talked about the literary terms for how it writes? You can also bring in psychological terms because the AI understands that. It had to read a bunch of medical journals and things like that. You could literally give Sarah borderline personality disorder, and what it knows academically about that, it would start to bring that into the story. So feel free to play psychologist, feel free to play English professor. I'll take out the Enneagram 3. All right, so then the next step is generating the outline. And again, you can bring any outline to the party that you want, because all your outline has to do is be in this format. You can literally have an outline that's longer than 12 chapters if you want to. Some people have wondered, well, what if I have 41 chapters, Elizabeth? That's not going to fit in 1,700 words. What you can do is you can summarize your early chapters as like bullet points of just like one sentence of what happens in them. And that way you can have more detailed outline for your later chapters as you're running those chapters. I still recommend having chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 in there so that the AI understands that this story is much broader and bigger. You also could just say, you know, chapters 1 through 10, this happens in the story if it's something super, super long. But there was an early question about somebody asking, how do we make sure that the AI understands what happens in previous chapters? The only way you can control that is what's in outline. and what's in your synopsis. So if your outline and your synopsis are not updated to reflect the changes you make in the prose as you're writing the story, the AI doesn't know that. It only knows what's in the outline. So if I decide to change chapter 2 on the back end of like Jack gets a call from his mother and I don't update my outline, future chapters that I write, chapter 8, chapter 9, if it was supposed to reference that call with his mother, it won't know that that call with his mother happened in chapter 2. I call these things that it writes here with a chapter 1, I call these silos, and I call them silos for a specific reason. Each one thing is an entity into itself. It has no idea that there's other chapters that were run. It has no idea that there's 3 versions of chapter 1 with best prose, most accurate, and one of them said this. They don't read each other. Once you hit outline, the boxes stop reading one another. Does that make sense to everyone? And that goes back to context window. And hopefully by next month, I'll be able to be here in front of you and go, that's all changed because now we have a bigger context window. So let's go. we do a lot more now. And that's, I think, the nature of AI. That's the direction it's heading. You guys are all here at the early stages of it. And it's just incredible the advances we get on a month-to-month basis. It makes my head reel. Okay, so that story, that outline is still running. Now the outline is hard coded to give you 4 acts.
Elizabeth, sorry,
Yes.
Gail here. Can you copy that into the chat?
Which one did you want me to copy?
The outline.
Sure.
Thank you.
I will copy the outline into the chat. Oh, it's too long. So let me go it in acts here. So we'll go act 1, act 2.
Don't need the whole thing, just a little bit of it to just give an idea to myself.
Sure. Well, I gave you the whole thing anyway. So.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And there we go. And so here it has chapter 11. It has Jack's transformation. 10 standoff with Detective Michaels, uses knowledge of the criminal underworld and his own moral compass to negotiate a deal that allows Sarah to avoid prosecution in exchange for her cooperation. Good job, Jack. And you know, reading this story for me as a writer, this always invigorates me. Like I get more ideas because the AI put something there. Like now I'm already thinking like, okay, what if Jack is, what if I want to make this like a legal thriller now? And Jack is some low-level junior associate at a defense attorney or something like that. And that's how he's able to help Sarah. And I didn't even get in like, thought about that because of until this chapter 11, where I read that he's going to somehow negotiate with Detective Michaels and everything. One downside is that there's no way for me to like fix the outline with just that little bit of information to say, hey, rewrite this outline, keep everything, but just make Jack a low-level defense attorney at like some big law firm or something. But that feature is coming actually. So that's the good news. But those are some of the things that I would do. And you could always take the outline. You can copy this outline and you can take it into pseudo write proper. I come out of this, don't worry, everything's in my story engine. If I paste it in here, I have my outline right here. And now I can actually use my pseudo write tools if I wanted to like change, the outline and everything to beef it up. Going back into story engine, that's a great question. Let me show you how you get it so you don't have to memorize that. So all of your information that you need about the boxes, if you're ever like, man, I don't remember what Elizabeth said about this box, chances are something's going to jog your memory in the question marks. So if I go to the beats, for example, right here, there's a question in the chat about how many words per beat. See, it's right here in the question mark. Each beat of this outline will turn into 100 to 200 words. Yeah, so it's got all of the great information. And you'll see the AI or junior writing partner. The only thing that's missing out of this is about the commands. And it says you can add special instructions for the AI in square brackets for greater control. I wish I could add here like literary terms, throw in some literary terms, like we used vignettes in our example today. I've never done story engine with vignettes before, but you can do it with all different kinds of literary devices and everything.
Elizabeth, I got a question on outline and characters. Can
Sure.
I add some of my own characters and then generate some more? and likewise with the outline, some of my own chapters and then generate more?
No. So if I put more characters in here, if I click generate, it's going to erase all of these characters.
Right. Okay. And with outline, it'll do the same.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you need to make changes, you have to manually make the changes right now. Until or you could use another AI tool, like you could take the characters into ChatGPT and say, keep these characters the same, now add a couple more to the list. I do that all the time.
So I couldn't add some that I've already made. So you're saying
You can, you just type them in.
That's what I mean. Sorry, that's what I mean. Elizabeth, type them in and then click generate. Will it create a few more then?
No, it'll erase everything.
Okay, I've got you. Okay.
Yeah. So let's say right
Okay.
here, let me show you.
Yeah.
I add number 7 and let me add Brian, conductor on the train. 8. Hannah. What's our names? Jack's coworker, who is suspicious of him. If I have that and I click generate, I lose all of it. I lose all of those characters. It'll be a completely new list of characters.
Okay, got you.
So you don't want to do that. So now we have Jack Thompson, and it'll keep some elements the same because it's pulling this from the synopsis. Because the synopsis already says Sarah, Jack and Sarah. But now we have Detective Laura Collins. We don't have Michael, Detective Michaels. So it understood that there needs to be someone, and now there's a charismatic psychologist. Now we have a whole nother realm of this. Amanda Kennedy. And I don't know why it started numbering them and then it didn't number the other 2. That's very strange. We got another
Elizabeth?
Victor. Go ahead.
I have probably a particular requirement, but the problem is I start with an already written story, which I'm reviewing. So I'm using AI to basically to fill in the gaps and as a help. I've been playing around with the various platforms. I'm using Poe, which offers several platforms.
Yep. It offers several AI models.
Yes. One thing that I would hate to have to do is manually rewriting the outline. So could I feed in my existing chapters in order to create an outline? So going backwards.
What I would do is in
down.
ChatGPT, what I do all the time, and I'll show you guys this trick. So let's say let me just say, because we had this here, let me go write me an outline for number 1. So it's going to write me a quick outline. Now you'll notice immediately this outline is not in the right format, right?
Mm-hmm.
So watch this, and I'll put this in the chat. Great. Please rewrite the outline to the following format. Act 1, introduction, chapter 1, chapter 2,
And so on.
chapter 3, and I just do that. And once I click that, it does.
Uh-huh.
And now,
I suppose you can also extract existing characters. Tell me what are the main characters.
yes,
out
you
of the
can.
So you need to fill in entire chapters.
You can work it back.
patiently
You can work it
into,
backwards.
Yeah, the problem is you never know how long, to what extent the bot retains what you've written.
So the
And
big
that was
thing,
a problem I had with Poe. It stopped working at one
Yeah.
stage.
the context window goes away. Sudowrite's different because if the information is there in the character box, it will use it to generate the beat. So the beats will look at that and the prose will look at that. So I'm actually, so I put that outline from ChatGPT in here, and you'll see like I would just clean it up a little bit because it's a little bit confusing, but it's in the right format now. I don't have to change that. Now, all of these boxes have this little history button. So I didn't lose the outline that I had in there
So
before. I
that's
can
great,
literally
yes.
click it and go back and click restore, and that old outline is right there. Now that goes
That's great,
away
yeah.
if you start a whole new story engine, obviously.
Yeah.
But so just to
That's-
show you a difference, I'm going to go ahead and click generate the beats real fast so that you guys can see. And this will be the last thing for the class, other than answering a question in chat. You'll see how you saw how the beats generated when we just said a man and a woman on a train. We had no characters. We had nothing. This is how the beats will generate now that it has all that information of the outline, the synopsis, and the characters. You'll see it pull in information. Now there's a question in the chat of, did I ever try an episodic novel? I think that's what it's called, with this outline format where you have no real main plot, but many parallel, or is it better to make every episode by itself, one by one with story engine? If you already know everything, why did it pull a law firm in there? Did I change that, or was that already in there? Sometimes I swear the thing listens to me and that influences it as well. Because I don't think we said anything about a law firm other than me just saying I would make him a law firm, right? That's when it gets creepy. That's when you're like, okay, there's a ghost in the machine. But you can see right here, observes the regular, Sarah boards the train. This is very different than what we had before in terms of beats. And you'll see this time it actually wrote 14 beats. So they're experimenting, it seems, with like how many beats it's creating, because it's weird that it created 14 beats. It's usually hard coded to just do 12. And these are not good beats. I would fix them. This scene avoids any major plot developments or spoilers. If you get beats like this, fix it. Because if you click run this is going to derail what you're going to have. It's not going to write anything. So I would actually thumb these down and be like, literally one of the beats just says, okay. So yeah, these are anemic beats. I would not use these at all. I would just take them out, or I would change them myself. And if I click generate again, I'll probably get something completely different. Thanks, Gail. Realize you have to go. All right, so back to the question that I've been kind of pondering while I was here. So that's a tricky, like that's what you're asking to do there, Johnny. That's a very advanced thing even for a human to accomplish and pull off, of an episodic novel where it's interweaving and everything. If I was trying to do it with AI, I would probably write the stories from the different point of views, like sequentially, and then I would figure out how they fit together to weave the scenes together. If you really were pantsing and didn't know what was going to happen with that, then what I would do, and this is an advanced tactic, is you have your list of characters. You could do things like, so see how this one, it's first poison, sorry a minute, let me fix it. We have from Jack. So watch this. I'm going to do this just with fastest, because I think this is a really cool thing that you can do. I'm going to just use fastest real fast just to illustrate this. And I'm going to click generate fastest and pause it. Create the chapter. Before I generate my beats, I'm going to say, change my style box to Sarah. Now I will generate my beats. So now all the beats are going to be from Sarah's point of view. Now you could use the same beats, but it's going to be a little bit harder to introduce Jack if we're trying to write from Sarah's point of view. Does that make sense? As the first beat. So I'm going to let it regenerate the beats. And then I would have to make sure that the scene makes sense details wise between the beats. But if you really didn't want to have to write multiple characters' point of views, you could do this if you had like a sequential, just like what I would have is I would have like a generic set of the events that are happening in the scene, not colored by one character or not. So it's almost like Joe Friday from was it Dragnet? Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts, where it's just the facts of the scene with the names of the characters in that scene, and then ask it to write that scene from different characters' point of views. So it would actually do that. Now it just wants to be a toddler again. Like, what the heck? Try again. Make it go. I know we changed a lot, Story Engine, but you can do it. It's actually a really fascinating idea. It would cut down your time on validating beats, which is usually the longest time writing with AI other than editing. So if you had your set beats, you could then just run it from different characters' point of views, run those scenes back to back. And like for a lot of different genres, especially like romance, I know readers would eat that up if it's the same scene from a different character's point of view. There we go. So it's still kind of deciding that it's going to be Jack, and it's probably because the outline isn't generic enough. Yeah, the outline is all about Jack. So we've noticed one problem here. So your outline basically has to be just the facts of what happens. Let's see if it writes from Sarah's point of view. Oh. I have never seen this happen. I've never seen the AI. I'm not mad at it because I noticed that same thing. I just said, we have a problem in our outline. We started off with Jack. It can't do, it's not going to be able to do this. And then it's like, I can't do this. You have a contradiction. So moral of the story, fix your outline so that it matches what Sarah wants. You know what? I've got a fix on this. Well, I would have to do more work, but the whole point is that you could rewrite from multiple character point of view if your outline was generic enough. Apparently, I'm not able to do that this morning. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming.